Alright guys, we're at the site and Alex has actually never dug with the backhoe. We've got the soil engineer, we've got the builder, potential buyer, and developer here, all watching him at the same time. This is going to be awesome. We're going to see if everything that we taught him down in the yard translates to actual skills out in the field. Don't know if it is or not, but what the heck, let's have a little bit of fun, right? So let's get into it. Okay, so here's what's happening if you're just tuning in. I just taught Alex how to run a TLB, the basics. And today we're going to actually be putting him to the test in front of a soil engineer who's been in the business for almost 50 plus years. Now here's really, I'm not testing Alex as much as I'm testing the soil engineer. And I say that because the soil engineer is working in a way that I'm completely not totally comfortable with. So we've got this development that's going in and soil borings need to be done, but there isn't an auger truck available. So to do the soil test on the site to see if these sites are buildable, the soil engineer asked us to come out and dig test pits. Now I have done this before, but you've got to really know what you're doing as a soil engineer to be able to accurately determine if a lot is buildable using a test pit. So this test is a test to see if Alex has the skills to see if he can get past the soil engineer, if the soil engineer figures out whether he's done this before or not. And it's also the test to see if this soil engineer doesn't catch that Alex is a green operator, then I know that this soil engineer is probably a green soil engineer. So this is a test both ways. Do you want smaller bites? Take smaller bites. Take it, put that over there. Smaller bites. So when we dig a test pit to determine if a lot is buildable, we've got to be careful that we don't just gouge into the dirt and move mass quantities of dirt. I want the engineer to be able to see the stratification in the soil because that's going to help him determine if a lot's buildable or not. Now I'm going to be guessing Alex is sweating bullets right about now because this is actually his first time ever digging with a backhoe. Now you see that wobble right there in the boom? That means our pins are loose, and that actually adds a little extra layer of challenge to it, making precise excavation even a little bit trickier. You can't hear it in the video, but Brian, the soil engineer, has already caught on that Alex is a green operator. So I was actually kind of keeping track, and it was 2 scoops in, Brian figured it out. And by now, it's starting to test his patience. I know the thumbnail of this video says fail, but what's happening with Alex is not the fail part. This is part of the learning process. Skip to about the 14-minute part to see an epic fail, and that one is actually on me. And what you're seeing right now is what every good backhoe operator started out. There is not a single operator that's ran any piece of equipment that wasn't at this initial awkward stage. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. But with so many eyeballs on him, I wanted to take the pressure off from him. So I'm gonna hop into the cab with the soil engineer, the developer, the builder, and potential customer all watching. I thought it might be a little bit easier if we let Alex step to the side and watch how to do the dig, and then when there's not so many people standing around and he's trying to perform in front of them, he can then be in a more relaxed environment and start to do the excavation. So now it's my turn. Now, digging a test pit is actually a lot different than digging a basement, digging a trench, digging anything else. Because as I'm digging, I'm actually, as the operator, also looking for layers of stratification in the soil. And what that means is I'm looking for a change in color, a change in the feel of the material. Anything that's going to tell me that there could be potentially unsuitable soils beneath the existing topography or the existing level of the ground. And if I spot that, I want to be able to point that out to the soil engineer. So I'm not just digging, I'm actually actively working with the soil engineer trying to identify the right types of soil. So you're going to see that I'm actually digging in a very uniform manner. I'm trying to layer the soil. I'm trying to dig, scrape, level so that if I do find something, we can immediately go down and test it. It's a little bit different than a typical way of doing a dig. So to test this lot to see if it's buildable, all I really need is a pit. I don't need a massive excavation area. But if we do discover that there is some potentially unsuitable soils down at the bottom of that pit, we've got to have a wide enough trench that we can get down to the bottom safely. But we can't also contaminate that soil. Meaning that if I find an unsuitable spot down low, I can't then widen out the trench because I'll be caving it in as I'm widening it out. So before I get to that point, I'm widening it out enough that if I do find some potentially unsuitable soils, I can safely crawl down into the bottom and grab a sample. In a minute, you're going to meet the soil engineer, but here's a little bit of history on him. He's over 74 years old, and throughout his career, he's tested over 39,000 different lots. He's had 2 major knee replacements, so he's not very mobile. So I've got to dig this trench, keeping that in mind, that we've got to get down to the bottom safely with a person that may not be able to get around all that well. So he wants me to lower him into the test pit, but I've watched him walk around this site. I'm not going to let him do that. We're going to talk to him in a minute, and I'm going to tell you that these are the kinds of guys you can learn so much from. So let's see what he has to say. So before Brian became a soil engineer, he was an operator.
I had one of these. I had a track hoe, and I had 2 drag lines.
You talking about one of those big
American crane.
a
60 foot a stick, 80 foot a stick.
What do you use that for?
For digging ponds.
Ponds? Yeah.
But the thing is that those were friction rigs. So I started getting a little carpal tunnel.
So were they steam driven too?
No, they were Cummins.
So what are we looking at?
Let the sun shine on it. See?
Oh yeah.
It's a high silt content.
Okay.
Okay? It's like sucking on a straw.
All right.
This is loaded with moisture.
Yeah.
Okay? It's silty. It's not necessarily clayey.
Okay.
So it's more silt. When you dig this job,
yeah,
you're gonna have to go down to be safe. To be safe, I'd say you're gonna have to go down about a foot and a half, at least about a foot and a half.
Below grade?
Below grade.
Below existing
below where
grade.
They're standing, right there.
Okay.
That's the bottom of your building area.
Footings, got it.
That's the bottom of your building area.
Okay.
If you go deeper, like on a house, typical house pad, you'll be about 20 inches wide
With your footing.
with your footing.
So you spread footings 20 inches wide.
20 inches wide, typical.
Okay.
But for this, I would say you go down 2 feet, come back 1 foot, come back up 1 foot, compact that, and place your footings at about 24 inches wide.
Okay.
Okay? You're spreading them out just a little bit, and you're putting them on just
like
a
a
touch
snowshoe.
of fill. Not very much at all. Okay?
So you want us to over dig, then to bring fill soil back in?
Bring back in, yes.
Okay, and
That's
all
the
the
safest way right here.
Okay.
Now that's your footing elevation. Then you come up, I would say come up to probably raised pockets.
Okay.
And that would be right where his fist is right there.
All right.
And that would be your elevation for this, well, probably for the garage and for the house. The garage and the house lower floor will be at the same elevation, probably.
So there's different strokes for different folks, and it's the same thing goes with engineers. I found that there's common sense engineers, which is obviously what Brian is, and then there's the technical engineers that are going to give you strict elevations. I personally like working with the common sense engineers, the guys that you can relate with, talk with, and get a good game plan together, but are still held accountable for what they say. So we're gonna backfill this one and then go dig a second test pit to make sure that the entire site is okay. But one of the questions I get asked a lot is, this John Deere is a 2-wheel drive backhoe and I use it 99% for snow plowing. I don't use it for dirt work, and this is why. It does not do good off-road. Much better in the winter than summer. So now here's something that's pretty easy to forget. This test pit will have to be re-excavated before a house can be built on it, because this is uncompacted fill soil. If we just put a footing over the top of this, it could lead to failure down the road. So whoever does the excavation, whether it's us or somebody else, they'll need to pull the material out of this test pit and then put it back in place and compact it. The reason we're not doing that right now is because I need to secure the site. I want to make sure that we don't have any test pits left open overnight in case any kids in the neighborhood come traipsing through the lot. They could fall into it and get hurt. So their safety is my #1 priority. Before construction begins though, this test pit will need to be fixed the right way. I'm going to be closing this video out here, guys. I just want to let you know that we had multiple test pits to dig on this site, and you see Brian, the soil engineer, standing right alongside of my boom as I'm digging. I want to point out that that's a big no-no. I don't care how comfortable you are with the operator, don't ever stand inside the excavation zone. If that backhoe gets out of control or something happens or a bee stings me in my back and I jerk, I could hit that old guy with my boom arm. It's not very safe, and it's a big no-no on my part because I let him do it. I've let other people do that. I'm guilty of allowing people to stand within my excavation zone, and that's how accidents happen. So what you see happening right here is bad on him, and it's worse on me for allowing him to actually stand that close to my work zone, and I want you guys to be safe. So here's a big giant fail on both of our parts. And with that, you guys, I hope that this video has helped you out in some way, shape, or form. I don't know if it has. You tell me. Has it just been fun to watch? Have you learned something? You tell me in the comments down below. God bless you guys. Go get them. And I hope you have an awesome day. How's that dirt taste, Brian? How's it look?
This is a better hole than that one.
Some better soil over this way, huh?
So That's about all the farther we gotta go on this one.
All right, I'm gonna fill her in.
Fill it up.
right.
Fill it in.